Price check.
All right. Where's CG?
He's at the beach.
I just came from there. So.
Welcome, everybody. We'll call the town council meeting to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome, everybody. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from, do I have minutes here?
No minutes. Didn't have minutes.
Didn't have any minutes, that's what I thought, okay. Report of the town manager, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mayor Black, members of council. Just wanted to remind everyone the town's fall cleanup will take place during the first week of October. Just as a reminder, participation in the bulk curbside collection aspect of this event is contingent upon payment of the monthly solid waste collection fee. Therefore, citizens who have chosen to opt out will not receive the service. And since there's been a little confusion about that, I'll note that also applies to brush pickup as well. So $25 a month fee is more than trash collection. We provide a lot of other services, which we did identify in our presentations back in the spring, but just for clarification, I want to make sure everybody understood that. And I wanted to complete my report by congratulating Public Works Director D.W. Lawhorn on his appointment by Governor Youngkin to the Board for Waste Management Facility Operators. I know everybody has probably heard about that, but I mean, that's a pretty significant thing, and it recognizes the hard work and expertise of DW, and I don't think I need to exaggerate it all by saying how lucky we are to have him on our staff, and I appreciate him personally. And that concludes my report.
Any questions from Mr. Warner?
That's for you, DW.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Warner? No? All right. Appearances before council? None? Okay. Council comments, Mr. Carson?
Yeah, first of all, just want to say welcome to everybody. Glad you're here. DW, we're proud of you. Glad you're one of ours. Really proud of you. Mr. Mayor, I just want to say it's been a really good week. I've seen a lot of activity around town. I'm looking forward to seeing it coming to fruition. But other than that, I'd just like to say thanks for the job that we are doing, because I don't think we get enough appreciation. And I better shut up right there. I really do, but I just want to say thanks.
Sir?
Yeah, DW, congratulations. Also, I did hear this week that our senators, Kane and Warner, it said that Bedford is, they've recommended that it's going to be a World War II heritage city or town, which is a big deal because there's only one per state. So hopefully that'll help us. I know as far as signage, Stacy, maybe we talked about that as well. So that's a good thing. So there are a lot of good things going on.
Thank you, DW, for everything you do. You are a big access to this town. And if we ever lost you, we probably wouldn't know what to do. We probably could find somebody to replace you, but I doubt it. But there's a lot of stuff going on in town. There was a news release this morning about several things going on in town, projects and stuff in the future. It's coming down at the hotel and different stuff. And like I said, we appreciate the Water Authority being here tonight, giving us a report on what's going on in their field operations. So that's all I have.
Okay, couple things. One thing, I hate to mention something. 9/11 was yesterday, and I think we all recognize what happened on that day, which is pretty significant. Most of us know where we were on 9/11 that's in this room, us older folk. I was, when 9/11 happened, I was at the beach watching television, drinking a cup of coffee, and about lost it. So, but who would have thought in this country, we would be attacked on our own continent, which was amazing. And hope it doesn't happen again. But we we need to make sure that we're watching what's going on. And we have a lot of folks doing our security for us, trying to keep up with this stuff. The nation came together on that particular issue, and I hope it comes back together again. I think there's much too vitriolic attitude at this point, but hopefully we can come together and do some good things for this country. Another thing, DW, appreciate you as always. You know, you do a great job for us, and your folks do a wonderful job. I'm always impressed. So, and the designation, if we get that designation of by the feds, that would be great. Appreciate that much.
Okay, first I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to congratulate DW on his appointment, very well deserved. And I think everybody remembers where they were when 9/11 happened. I was in high school when it happened. And another thing that's something that some people ask me is, if it ever came up, would you ever vote to unincorporate the town of Bedford? And my answer to that is no. Bedford should not be unincorporated. You know, yeah, we've came a long ways in just a couple short years. The 620 project, the new hotel that's coming in, the business class hotel, I should say. And we got a few other projects that are being worked on coming down the pike. You know, we've came a long ways, but we still have a long ways to go. I'd like to see us get to being the world's best little town. There's a few more things I'd like to see come in, but you know what? We are headed down the right path, and maybe we can actually keep getting better and better. I mean, I look at it this way. You don't just stay the same. You keep looking to get better, and that's what you got to do. And unincorporating will not be the answer. The answer is to look how to improve and just take the ball and keep moving forward.
All right, a couple things. DW, you know, I'm proud of you. You always do a wonderful job for us, and people in the Commonwealth of Virginia are now going to benefit from your expertise in solid waste management, and our state will be better for that as well. So, congratulations. You know, come back with any good ideas you come, and then we'll be happy to talk about them. But you know, once again, thank you. You know, like I said, 9/11, you know, was a pretty important day in this country, and pretty eventful and pretty traumatic. and we always need to, remember what we went through and the people who lost their lives, and take that and always remember our first responders in our community who answer that same call day in, day out. Our law enforcement, our police department, our fire department, EMS. You know, it may not be as a big event, but I can tell you they have their own events. It's a very stressful career, and they're here to serve us, and we can't ever say thank you enough, in my opinion. You know, so thank you, Chief. Pass that along to Chief Stone, you know, as well. You know, anything we can do to help you all, we're going to try to do that, okay? Couple things real quick. I left everybody a brochure from the Bedford Area Educational Foundation, invited anybody on council, staff that wanted to come to their back-to-school breakfast. It's kind of an event where they kind of highlight what they do. They're one of the outside agencies we funded for several years. So, you know, if you have the time, get a free breakfast there. You know, it's a pretty good event. I mean, they usually have students and teachers kind of show, you know, what they've used their grant monies for. So it's always a pretty good event there. Obviously, we've got Centerfest coming up. I think that occurs before our next meeting, or not?
I think it's right after the next meeting.
Right after. But anyway, we have been invited by Nick McConnell for them to attend a presentation where there's going to be a joint resolution between the county and the town to present to the junior ROTC at Susie Gibson and recognize them for their contributions to the community. So if you're, and that's going to be.
Actually, you're correct, Mr. Mayor. It's the 23rd.
Yes, right. It's the yeah. I thought it was the Saturday before our next meeting. I'm sorry. I'll tell you the time. It's going to be at 10 o'clock in the center of town. You know, where the junior ROTC meets. Unfortunately, I've got a family thing, and I'm going to be out of town, so I'll probably ask CG to read on behalf of the town as vice mayor. If for some reason he can't do it, then Bruce or somebody, I'll get with y'all to.
We'll be there that morning.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
If you need me, I'll plug you in.
All right. Well, I wished I could be there, but this was planned a year ago, so you know, it's just life. But anyway, so I think that's all I've got right now. And next, let's see, report of council committees. We had a couple committee meetings this evening. Ms. Taylor?
First committee meet we had this evening was Public Safety Committee meeting. We was looking into purchasing a future fire apparatus replacement in 2027. We had an operation briefing for the police department and Chief Lewis. On the Streets Committee, we talk about the intersection of Freedom and Lowry, maybe just putting a three-way stop there, and sidewalks and town transportation infrastructure. We talk about different sidewalk projects that we're looking at doing down the road.
So a couple things I'll just add up to, you know, we've got a capital project or capital replacement schedule for fire apparatus. In several years, we're going to have to replace the ladder truck and possibly an engine.
Yep.
But good news is we think we've got that covered. You know, between some county funding, from some money we've saved and put aside, knowing this was coming, and potentially what we could get for the sale of the used equipment. So you know, there'll be more discussion about that as we get into getting a few more pieces of information Mr. Warner's going to get for us, and then we'll bring that discussion in front of all the council. Okay. And I think that was. So that we'll probably ask next month. I think we asked Mr. Warner to see if Chief Lewis could come and give that same presentation that the committee got to everybody on council. He's doing a lot of amazing stuff and got really good plans to upgrade and use technology. And I think we all need to hear about that because, and we also need to hear the challenges that he's got because they're here and we need to recognize that and our citizens need to hear that. So I've asked him to maybe come and give a presentation next month at one of our council meetings, and he's agreed to do that. So thank you, Chief. Nothing else on revisions to agenda? Nobody's got anything we need to add, Mr. Warner? Anybody? All right. The first item is the request to close the streets for the annual Peaks of Otters Christmas Classic Foot Race.
Bedford Area Family YMCA is requesting permission to hold their 44th annual Peaks of Otter Christmas Classic Foot Race on Saturday, December 2nd, 2023, and to close streets basically on the route they generally use on the loop, which is Longwood Avenue, Peak Street, Whitfield, and then Oakwood Street. They will also use Newton Circle as part of a kids fun run 1 mile event. The course will start and end at Bedford Baptist Church. They're also requesting the right lane of traffic be closed off using cones beginning at Longwood Baptist Church and continuing to Elm Street on Longwood, which will provide participants with an extra margin of safety. These closures in conjunction with the race will be used for participants from approximately 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. The race will start at 8:30 a.m. with approximately 500 runners participating. A letter will be sent to residents of that area. They will also notify the fire department, police department, and Bedford County Fire and Rescue of the street closings. Residents of the affected areas will also be notified and will have ingress and egress to their homes. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the closing of streets for the 44th Annual Peaks of Water Christmas Classic Foot Race from 7:30 a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m. on Saturday, December 2nd, 2023.
All right, we have a motion to close the streets for the
So moved.
Peaks of Water. All right.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? 44 years. I didn't know it'd been going on that long. That's pretty good. Roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 ayes.
All right, next item, the Liberty High School Homecoming Parade.
And we have distinguished guests from Liberty High School, including the
Okay.
SCA president, who's coming to speak to us.
Good evening, my name is Marissa Preek and I am the current student body president of Liberty High School. This evening I am here on behalf of Liberty High School students and our SCA, who this year have been given the opportunity to organize our 2023 homecoming festivities. And we request your assistance once again to have our homecoming parade through downtown on Thursday, October 12th. We would like to close the streets close to 5:30 with the parade starting shortly thereafter. As we have in the past, we will distribute flyers to all residents along the parade route Sunday or Monday before the parade, letting them know that there will be a brief interruption in traffic on their street. We appreciate your consideration and approval for this event and hope you are able to join us for the parade and all other homecoming festivities that will take place this year. On behalf of Liberty High School and our SCA, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion to close the streets for the homecoming parade again.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Other than the fact that it's my 40th high school reunion from Liberty High School this year. Don't laugh now. But no, yeah, I mean, thank y'all for, involving the students in our community, and we'll I'm always going to want to support Liberty High School.
While she's present, I'll take the opportunity to embarrass Ms. Parikh a bit by noting that she is also a state champion in forensics.
Yeah, I thought that I'd seen that on Facebook before. So
Congratulations.
congratulations on all yours.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson? Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 ayes.
All right, thank you. All right, next, we got Mr. Key here from the Water Authority. Brian and I just had been talking on some things, and he's got a kind of a request for us to consider extending some term, making some changes, I guess, in the organizational documents to eliminate term limits. And so I asked him to come and kind of explain what that was about, why they were asking us for that, and then also maybe just to give us a little update on, what are some of the projects that are going on and everything. So, Mr. Key, welcome. And I'll just kind of turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Black, and members of the council. Thanks for letting me come and speak for a few minutes tonight. As you know, I'm Brian Key. I'm the executive director of the authority. I've been with the authority, the Bedford Regional Water Authority, since its inception on July 1st, 2013. Also, I have with me three board members, making 4 of us tonight. First of all, I want to introduce Bob Flynn. He's our chairman. Bob's been with the board since its inception, which they started before I did, since the authority started July 1st. They started meeting actually about 6 months ahead of time. So Bob's been on the board since January 1st of 2013. He served a 3-year term as the initial term, and then 2 full 4-year terms, making it the longest term that any of the initial board members could serve. So Bob's been with the Public Service Authority prior to that, but as the BRWA, he's been with us for the full 11 years, which is the most that you can. Along the same lines, Mike Moldenauer is with us tonight, and Mike sort of follows that same schedule. Mike's on the Personnel Committee of the authority, and he's been with us as long as Bob Flynn has. They're both the 2 longest serving BRWA board members. Also, 3-year initial term and 2 full 4-year terms. Both of them have terms that expire on December 31st of this year. Also, Rusty Manzel's with us tonight, and Rusty is one of our newer board members. He started on January 1st of 2021, so he's serving his first term, which will expire December 31st of 2024, and then he'll be eligible for an additional 4-year term to wrap up, if he'll stay with us that long, until December 31st of 2028. So Rusty and Mike and Bob have been phenomenal board members. They've done an excellent job at leading us forward, with both Mike and Rusty being town-appointed representatives. Following up on that, the letter that was sent to Mayor Black and then distributed to the board was about the term limits. That letter was dated August 18th. And the request is that the council consider revising the Articles of Incorporation, which is where it's spelled out that there would be 2 full 4-year terms as a maximum before a member could not serve an additional term, regardless of what action council would like. They would have to be removed. And we've had a few members that have left because of that, and they were very good board members, and we're sad to see them go. We've realized, and the county has also realized, that it's difficult to find qualified folks that are willing to stay, and so we hate to lose someone that has a tremendous amount of wealth, experience, knowledge, just because of a term limit. This revision to the articles would have to also be approved by the county, and we had a work session with the county on August 28th, and the county said that they would be okay with the concept of removing, as long as the town was. Both of you would have to have a public hearing on the matter and would have to adopt a resolution or take action saying that you wanted to make a revision to those articles in order for them to change. The county's comments were that it just gave the board more flexibility. It doesn't take away any control whatsoever. You don't have to reappoint anyone, but it makes it so that you could, if you wanted to, after those 4-year terms have expired. So their comment was, it adds greater flexibility while not taking away any control whatsoever. They also stated they thought that it was more consistent with what other local boards were, particularly some of those in the county that don't have term limits, and they felt like that change would bring it more in line with what other boards were doing. So they are working through the process of establishing a date. They might hold that public hearing and then working through the revisions to the documents. But they did definitely want to get some input from council before they go down that path, if council doesn't have some of the same feelings about eliminating that term limit requirement. Any questions about the term limit or about that request?
So like I said, the appointment would still be you would have an appointment every 2 years for a 4-year term. Is that still kind of how it works? There would be one this year, and then the next one would be, so you'd have an appointment every 2 years for a 4-year cycle. Is that how it kind of works? Is that?
They are staggered.
Okay.
In the wisdom of both the county and the city at the time when they set it up, that's the reason the initial members had a 3-year term and then 2 4s. Some of the members had a 2-year initial term and then 4.
Okay.
And then one member had a 1-year initial term and then 4. So they,
Not like what we're getting ready to go through, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's that same way. The staggered terms would still apply, and you would still at any time, you don't have to reappoint after the first 4-year terms. You could pull someone off after that, or you could go 8 years, or if you eliminated the limits, you could go 12, 16, whatever length of time you want.
Okay, couple things is, as far as doing away with the term limits, all it's saying is that they can obviously keep applying as long as they wish to serve. Now, some question I do have, not for Brian, but some of the ones that could be up is, if you're reappointed, what would be some of your goals, and why do you deserve to stay on?
Well, we can certainly kind of work with that one. We don't even know right now who's applying for that. So I think, I guess we'll have appointments. We got one appointment coming up, correct? So we'll get that chance when we get whoever applies, I think, to kind of maybe go there, Bruce. If you don't mind, you know what I'm saying? I think I just want us to focus in on the thought process of, because we've got a vacancy coming up. If we decide to do this, we're gonna have to appoint somebody before the end of this year anyway. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, Mayor, and that's the driving force behind the schedule is if you do elect to revise the Articles of Incorporation to eliminate the term limits, our request is that you would do that prior to the middle to end of October. And the reason is just so that that would give both council and the Board of Supervisors the knowledge of whether they're going to need to seek other candidates or if they're going to reappoint someone that's on the board. And so that process for the county usually takes a month or two. And if you took those 2 months as a longer period, that's November and December, because the term expires at the end of December, and we'd like to have them by the beginning of January. So that's the request, is sometime relatively soon in the next 6 weeks.
So let me ask Bart or Mr. Lockley it's kind of a related question, but it's maybe different. So like our other appointments we make for our other boards, the EDA, I mean, is there anything in the current town code that would be in opposition of, this? Are we opening up? Obviously, now we're opening it up where we can have extended. There's no term limits on the EDA, or am I making sense when I'm asking?
No.
So there are no term limits on any of our other boards right now. Is that correct?
Insofar as I'm aware, there are none, and we have several long-serving and distinguished members on.
All of those,
our
yeah,
commission.
yeah. I just wanted to make sure we were kind of being consistent and not doing something here that might have been different.
There's no language that would direct you to prohibit.
Okay, all right. Anybody else got any thoughts or questions?
Seems like a good idea to me.
Well, I mean, I know how hard it is for us to fill our positions on our board, so, yeah, I mean, and I don't think we really lose that control because we still have that.
You lose all that experience and.
Right. I mean, inside knowledge is
Yeah.
very valuable in any organization, and so what would we need to set up a time schedule, kind of, Mike? We'd have to have a public hearing and an ordinance.
Yeah, we would have to have a public hearing, 2 advertisements. I can't remember exactly what the timeline was. I should have looked that up before I got here, but 2, it needs to be advertised, I believe for 2 weeks. You have a public hearing. At that public hearing, or if you decided to put it off for another 2 weeks to think about it, you would adopt a resolution to change the Articles of Incorporation. You would want that resolution to be set to have an effective date that's on the same day as what the Board of Supervisors adopts. And you would also want it to be identical,
Language.
saving, typos or anything, but generally exactly the same as what the county adopts.
So you can work with Patrick on that, obviously.
Yeah, I've already been in contact with Patrick and Wattsburgs about putting that together, and I just holding off on actually putting any time into it until you guys decided tonight whether you had any interest. But yeah, that's
So we
already
could
been started.
potentially do the public hearing and the ordinance, say the first meeting in October. That would give y'all plenty of time, you think?
I think we could do it the first meeting in October. Whether you wanted to do it the first or second meeting, that probably makes sense, obviously.
Because then we still have to advertise do we have an advertisement running now for that position?
We do, and we have received interest from a couple of citizens.
Okay, so we're already in that advertising process just because we got the appointment coming up anyway, so we don't have to, that would still, if we did it either the first or the second meeting in October, we'd still have plenty of time to,
Yeah,
even though we typically don't meet but once in November and December typically.
but we could get it, my recommendation would be, in order to make the time work out, that you do it at one of your 2 October meetings.
So if we did it if we did it, say, the first meeting, the second meeting in October, if we wanted to have whoever's applied at that point, if we wanted to have invite them in to have a conversation with them, that would probably be the second meeting. And then that would still give them plenty of time to get something like that. So, all right, I'm just thinking out loud, make sure, does that make sense to everybody, kind of?
Yeah.
What, I mean, thoughts? All right, do we have a consensus that we're okay with
Yeah.
making this change
Sounds
to the
good.
Articles of Incorporation,
Yes.
organization, which, yeah, yes, okay. All right, so yeah, we'll work with everybody to, in the county and y'all and make sure we get the time.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
And Mayor Black, as you requested, I've got some updates on a few other projects and a little bit of information to share. I never want to miss the opportunity to present to council and give you a little bit of additional information. So a couple things. First of all, the ARPA projects, the $4.5 million that was allocated of federal money by the town. We have been moving forward with those 3 projects that were designated. The Town and Country project was 9,050 feet of 8-inch and 10-inch sewer line. Bid opening was September of 2022, and the contract amount was $2.37 million. That is nearly complete now. Of that 2.37, 438,000 was for paving, so 18% of the project's paving, which is kind of incredible given the scope of the project. So pipe was about $1 million, give or take, and the rest was in ancillary costs, manholes, boring underneath crossings and things like that. So that project, with the paving being complete in the last few weeks, we are just about done with that job. We're wrapping it up, and we still have a pretty significant application for payment that's due, but the work itself has been completed. The vast majority of it they're cleaning up now. Second project is the Belltown Road project. That's a little smaller project. That was 1,950 feet of 8-inch water line with 2 fire hydrants. And again, some ancillary items, fittings and valves. The first bid opening that we had for that was in March 30th of this year, and the bid amount was $448,000. And we knew that was too much for that size project. We thought that was nearly double what we were expecting. And it would have put the project over the budget amount that we'd anticipated and asked the town for, which was $500,000 because of the engineering costs and the survey costs. So we went back on the streets and bid it again, had a second bid opening on May the 4th, and that bid opening came in with the exact same scope of the project as $264,000. So much more in line with what we thought. We have a term contractor that also gave us a quote because they don't need to bid, they have a term contract, and they were just around $300,000 for the same project, so definitely in the right scope. And this contractor has a good reputation. We awarded the contract, and they're supposed to begin work next week. So groundbreaking will be next week on that 8-inch pipe. Again, on that project, paving was about $51,000 of the $264,000, so 19% of the project cost is paving, and that's one road crossing and a bunch of driveways. So like everything else, the price of pipe's gone up, the price of asphalt has really gone up, and it's just the cost of making sure that you restore back in equal or better condition than what you found, and that's what the asphalt requires, or that is required for the asphalt. The Helm Street tank is not quite as far along as those 2 projects. The design of that's taken a little bit more time. We submitted the design review to the town and the county and VDH, Virginia Department of Health, at the end of last month, the 30th of August. And our goal is to bid that project in November and award the project by the end of the year. Currently, the engineering estimate for that project is $3.23 million. So that's a little more than the other projects that we had requested for the ARPA. The difference in that will be made up in a combination of funds from the Department of Environmental Quality, as well as some capital improvement project funding and some set-aside funds. And that's how we'll make sure that all 3 of those projects get complete, is we'll subsidize what the ARPA grants didn't cover. So we're well underway on that. We're hoping to get some comments back from the town, the county, and VDH in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Keep that project moving. Also, have a few just statistics to share with you. Over the past 10 years, so we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Again, we started in 2023, or in 2013, so being in 2023, this year, the entire year, we're having celebrations for our 10-year anniversary. Over the last 10 years, the town system, or central as it's considered, because it's not just inside of town, it goes slightly out of town in a couple areas. So the area around the town, the central water system, and operating expenditures, we spent $2.99 million. In the central sewer system, over the last 10 years, we've spent $6.73 million, and that's just operating. That's just paying for keeping the lights on, that's keeping chemicals in the plants. That does not include any labor whatsoever. So that is just operating expenditures less salaries or benefits. So operating in town, we spent about $9.7 million in the last 10 years, about $1 million a year. In capital expenditures on the water side, we spent $2.54 million on the water, and on sewer, we've spent $8.6 million. So combined, we've spent $11.2 million in capital projects. A big part of that was the ESCO project for the wastewater treatment plant, which is a little more than $5 million. We also spent a little more than $1 million, I think it was about $1.3 million, on getting rid of the gas chlorine at the wastewater treatment plant and changing that out to being hypochlorite disinfection instead of a cylinder gas disinfection with chlorine. So total $11.2 million. When you add it to the $9.7 million, we spent about $20.9 million in checks written to people other than to our employees. So a fairly significant expenditure. We have 19% of our customer base on the water side is from in and around the town. That's considered the same service area that the city had previously. So we drew those lines as in town and adjacent to town in the same ways that the city drew the lines as what was in town and what was directly adjacent to town. That's a little bit fuzzier now since we have interconnecting systems that go from Forest to the town and from the town to Smith Mountain Lake. So you could have some folks that are just slightly outside of that area that have a connection, but those are being considered from a statistic standpoint as being county customers. So 19% water, 21% of our sewer customers are town customers. So just to put it a little bit into perspective. And we're still working on replacing pipes in town. There's no question there are a lot of projects that are needed, and we're working on them diligently to get that done. We have a crew of 4 people that we call our Capital Improvement Project crew, our CIP crew, and that's the vast majority of the work that they do is just replacing pipes in town. Currently, they are on Peaksview Street, replacing the entire length of that street. We've done the Avenel project, we've done Dawn Drive sewer, water and sewer. We've been working through the areas that have significant breaks or significant risks for breaks, or that they are a significant backbone part of the system, particularly when we have an area where a lot of customers are having problems. Some of the pipe that we're replacing is galvanized pipe, and over the history of 50 plus years, the internal diameter of that pipe has just gotten smaller and smaller, and when it started out as being really undersized for what the current demands are, it just can't handle the flow rates of the growing town, which is a great problem to have, but it means that the customers are receiving less than ideal service. That's where we focus our efforts. If we've got too many breaks and we're having to dig up the pipe regularly, we want to replace it. If we're having customers that can't have their neighbor using the shower at the same time they're trying to fill up a swimming pool, or a bathtub, then we know that we've got a problem. So if there's a significant pressure loss when multiple people are using at the same time, we know we need to do something. And Peaksview was definitely an area that we had identified as being a problematic pipe system, and that's why we're there. But we've got a long list of places we need to go from there. So we recognize that we'll probably always be doing this. I don't think we'll ever catch up on having the entire town do, because it would take, I'll ballpark $100 million in debt service in order to have a project that would be significant enough that you could knock out a large part of the town all at one time. So as we identify the worst areas or the most urgent areas, that's where we're spending our time with that capital improvement crew. The other thing that I wanted to just provide a little bit of clarification on, there's a Facebook page, it's the Bedford Candidate Open Forum. Probably most of you have seen that or are members of that. There was a comment on there that said that any candidate that would work to get us back on Mountain Water has my mom's vote. I think it was Tim Brook that wrote that. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that we've never been off of that reservoir. We've never, one of the comments was that we sold surplus equipment and no longer running that plant. That's just not true. We continue to run that plant right now 3 days a week. And we've been running it at different schedules depending on what our staff availability is and what the demands are. We've been running it since, for 10 years now. We've never taken it down other than for some significant maintenance projects. But as soon as those projects were done, we immediately brought the plant back online. So we are continuing to run that plant. We see that it's a very valuable plant. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive plant because of the operator requirements there, which are just state requirements. The Virginia Department of Health requires having a single operator there every hour of the day that it's in production. And for safety and for the amount of labor that it takes to run the plant, you really have to have two, which lines up pretty well with what the city did. The city had 8 employees that ran that plant, and they worked round the clock, day and night, swing shifts, graveyard shifts. And so for us to bring that plant to where we could run it all the time, we'd have to have 6 more employees on staff, and that would be another $350,000 a year. Some of the other comments on the forum were about that our rates are too high. So if we were to add another $350,000 per year of salary and benefits, that would mean that our rates would be even higher than they are now. So what we try desperately to do is find that right balance of having the backup source from Smith Mountain Lake, which has to have water flowing through that pipe. I think I reported that in the past to the council. We have to have water flowing through that pipe on a regular basis, and it's a big pipe to provide 100% redundancy. It has to be turned over, or else you'd have stale water that wouldn't meet the needs of the health department nor the needs of our customers. So that's why we have to produce a significant amount of water from Smith Mountain Lake to go through that pipe. And we do take as much as we can to the forest area as well to keep that same pipe from the lakes to town turned over and keep it fresh. So it's just a balance act, and we're trying to find the most efficient way to run the plant, recognizing that the water is softer there and it does have a different taste. But it's not something that's not safe when it's coming from Smith Mountain Lake. It has equal qualities. The characteristics are slightly different. It is a little harder when it's coming from Smith Mountain Lake than it is from the reservoir, and we know that as well. But we're pushing as much water out of the plant that comes from the reservoir as we can, while still maintaining that balance of having water regularly flowing from Smith Mountain Lake. With that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to say thank you for what you're doing. Seems like you got things under control. As for the untruths, you're gonna find out there's a lot of untruths on a lot of websites.
Absolutely.
But as long as you know that you're doing your best, don't pay them no mind.
And I'd encourage anyone, whether they're posting on Facebook or if you'd like to give me a call, if any councilman ever have a question about something they hear that just doesn't sound quite right, I'd love to have the opportunity to speak. Come to my office, give me a call, do FaceTime, Teams meeting, however is convenient for you. I'd love to talk about it because we are doing the best that we can, and I think we're providing a very valuable resource, and I think we're doing a good job with it. It's disappointing when you hear other comments, but I think they're the minority. I think most people do understand that we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, and it's really good.
I don't think they're mean. I don't think they're saying it to be mean. I actually say they think that they're making these remarks because they actually don't know. That's their biggest problem. They don't know or understand. So
Yes, sir.
You'll probably see a lot of that.
I did the tour a couple years ago with Brian, and that was very helpful.
Yeah.
Going up there, just laying eyes on it, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense now.
Right.
I just want to say, I remember when you first started the plant over there, I actually came on a tour to the plant when you started the one in Smith Mountain Lake. I remember walking into it, where it looks then and where it looks now, it's a whole different world or whatever. So, and I appreciate you clarifying some things to some people or whatever, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, I want to thank you for coming out here tonight, clearing a few things up, which obviously the average person may or may not know about. All they see is the bill, and they're getting their water and I appreciate you coming out here, getting ahead of things, clarifying things, answering questions that people out in the community may have. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Two questions.
Yes, sir.
Kind of, so when the line was from the lake, that permit was for like, what is it, 6 million gallons a day?
We have the capability of withdrawing, I believe it's 8 million.
8 million?
The plant could be fully expanded to 6. Right now, we have 4 million gallons worth of capacity in equipment and 3 million gallons worth of capacity in filter media, the actual cartridges that
Are we
snap it.
close to meeting that capacity? I mean, if you know, from an economic development standpoint, I want maybe us, the water authority, the county, to maybe have some conversation about the fact that we have got a pretty robust capacity for water.
Yes.
Now, of course, the other side of that is the sewer issue, the sewer capacity. But I think there's some opportunity there at some point in time to that we would need to take advantage of that fact that we can get that much water out if we can. So I'd like us to, as we start looking long-term, we're just having a little brainstorm here. I think that's an opportunity if we can find a way to kind of, because, in the past, there was a lot of industry here that used a lot of water, food sources, that kind of stuff. So, I just want us to all kind of think about that a little bit, maybe, as we move forward.
I think that's an excellent point. We have today capacity of 3 million gallons that within 8 weeks we could be up to 4 million gallons just by buying a few more cartridges. And the only reason we don't have them is you don't want to have too much capacity that you're not using, or else you're not keeping those cartridges exercised like they need to be. So we're doing about 1.7 million gallons a day out of Smith Mountain Lake.
Okay.
The plant in town, so almost a little bit more than half, but lots of capacity there per day. The plant in town, it's rated at 3, but it really can't do more than a little more than 2. So we're doing 1 million gallons a day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But if we were to step up and have a large user that came into town, we'd run the plant more often, or we'd bring more water up from Smith Mountain Lake, or a balance of both.
Right.
So there's less than half of the capacity is being used from the Stony Creek plant, actually a quarter, because we're running half of the capacity half of the time, so about a quarter of that capacity is being used. Not to mention that with the booster station in town that's on East Crest, that station lets us bring water also from Forest. You have to pump because Forest is at a lower elevation than the town is, so you have to run the booster to bring it in, or to go to Smith Mountain Lake. It can do both. That booster station can bring another 2 million gallons from Forest, and we have a guaranteed capacity with them of 3 million gallons a day. And we're only buying one because it's the second most expensive source. In order, Smith Mountain Lake is the cheapest to produce, Lynchburg is the next cheapest to purchase, and then the Turkey Mountain plant is the most expensive to produce on our own. And so that's why we prioritize and run water in the ways that make sense economically. So with Forest, buying 1 million right now per day, there's 2 million more that can be purchased per day. So we're sitting in an excellent place that with 3 robust sources, and those limitations are either by contract or by simple equipment at Smith Mountain Lake. Easily we could go to 6 without building any more buildings. We just buy another membrane unit, and that takes about 6 months. But if we knew we had a major industry coming in, and we knew we had at least 6 months to meet that need, we could ramp up at Smith Mountain Lake to get to 6 million gallons just like that.
Yeah, because like I said, that water is going to be a very important resource down the road, and I think we're positioned in a pretty good place. And I just,
absolutely,
if there's opportunities to take advantage of that position, I would like us, all to just kind of brainstorm on how we can maybe do that.
Absolutely,
market it or whatever,
Right, and we do have a limitation on our sewer system, and we're working to eliminate that Achilles heel, and it's the lift stations that are a challenge for us. And there's a few pipes that need to be changed out, force mains that need to be replaced as well. But again, the treatment plant in town just has gone through a major renovation, and by doing that, we actually have a greater capacity available from our rated permitted capacity than we've ever had before. With these heavy rain events that we've had, the plant prior to the upgrade would have problems being able to maintain the flow in the equalization basin and occasionally would overflow. This is 5 years ago and older. And that was a problem that the former manager of the plant said has always been a problem. We don't have that problem now, even with these massive 100-year storm events that we keep having over and over again. We were able to contain that now and not overflow at pump stations and not overflow at the plant nearly as frequently as we used to. So we do have treatment capacity, we just need to get it to the plant, and we're working on that. We've made some pretty good progress on pump station 1 and 2 on replacing those pumps, which is another project that jointly the county and the authority and the town worked on for the west side of town, and that's underway. We're well on our way to getting those pumps fixed.
So from the sewer capacity, that was obviously a question too. You knew where I was headed, but so I know you some of the things you've identified some things, you've done some things, and that's starting to improve capacity. Is there the next project now after Town and Country was and the pumps were kind of the first step to kind of help us get some capacity back? Is what's next on the list, and then kind of what is the timeline on that, or do you have a next on the list yet, or?
Well, we have a lot of projects that are collection projects, both water and distribution for the water side, collection on the wastewater side. We've identified a number of places. The Town and Country project not only helped the residents in that area because they were having problems with root intrusion that would cause backups. We were constantly spraying for root control. We were constantly digging up the pipe and making repairs. It was a system that was in a very bad state of disrepair. It never probably had been installed properly from the very beginning. And materials have changed and quality controls changed, but by eliminating some of the holes in that system, we reduced the amount of inflow and infiltration, the rainwater that's coming into the system, and that was wastewater or storm water that we were having to handle at our pump station. So by keeping the storm water out of the wastewater system, we gained back capacity. We've got a lot of projects like that. Western Hills is a project that's similar to Town and Country, another subdivision that is fairly large. It's going to take a fair amount of money, and we'll work through getting through that project either by chipping away at it with our capital improvement team or by taking on additional debt service and taking on another construction project. But we're going to continue to take out some of the leaking pipes, which will continue to buy back capacity in the collection system. And if we do that, then we'll find that the pump stations are actually sized correctly when the pumps are working correctly, that we'll be able to handle that flow. And again, we've got a lot of capacity in the wastewater plant. So we think we're on a path to having really no restrictions on growth on the western side of town, and we don't on the eastern side. We've already talked about the new subdivision that the town approved the rezoning on. That subdivision flows into pump station number 3 on the eastern side of town, and it has plenty of capacity. The treatment plant can handle that project without any question. So, well, I think we're in a good spot. We're ready for growth.
Okay.
If the town wants to send it our way, we'll be able to handle it.
That's what I wanted to hear. Any other questions?
And I'll just, Brian, maybe you were going to mention this, but some of these things we can talk about at our joint roundtable meeting scheduled for October 5th.
Yes, thanks, Bart.
And I'll get you an attendance list for that this week.
Great. Yes, that's the point, or to follow up on what Bart said, we're in the middle of a strategic plan rewrite. We had a plan right after we created the authority, but it's gotten a little bit stale and we needed to refresh it. We hired a facilitator who lives here in town, is a customer here in town, and she's going to lead us at that strategic planning, or the roundtable meeting. The authority's portion of that will be talking about that strategic plan, and we very much do want the input. We had a customer survey that we sent out to every customer that we had an email address on file for, and we received back, it was around 10%, I think, of those customers, and which for a survey is pretty good. And to Mr. Carson's point, communication is always a challenge, a struggle, and that's what we heard back from most of our customers is it's not that we're not doing a good job, it's that we're not telling everyone that we're doing a good job. They don't know the good projects that we're doing, the good processes that we're taking, the improvements that we've made. The lack of information about whether Turkey Mountain is still running, I mean, that we never announced or talked about or actually turned that plant off, but yet the community thought that there was a lack of water coming from from the reservoir and from the plant. So better communication is something we heard from that survey, and that's something that we'll talk about definitely at the roundtable meeting in October. Thank you, Bart.
Any other? Thank you, Mr. Keith, Mr. Molnar, Mr. Mansell, Mr. Flynn. Thank y'all for coming and being here. And like I said, I think we're working together. We're moving in the right direction, and I appreciate y'all's support and help for what we're trying to do here in town. So thank you. All right, we'll see you in a couple weeks, I guess. All right, thanks. All right, so Mr. Warner, next item, special events policy.
Historically, the town hosts several special events on a routine and regular basis. Some of these have a long history and have become somewhat institutionalized. Examples including Centerfest and the 5K race sponsored by the YMCA on the first weekend in December. There have also been some recent additions in the past few years that appear to be trending towards similar status, such as the Liberty High School Homecoming Parade. In between, there are increasingly random requests for events requiring restriction of public property, such as streets, and commitment of town staff and resources. To address the issues related to these events, primarily the cost borne by the town and its taxpayers, as well as logistical matters such as traffic management, staff has drafted a comprehensive special events policy as directed by council. The draft was reviewed and discussed by the Property Committee at its meeting on July 25th, 2023. As part of the discussion, committee members recommended inclusion of language related to events that coincide with recognized town holidays, as well as sponsorship considerations, and voted unanimously to recommend the proposed policy with those changes. Staff has edited the draft to include these recommendations and is now presenting the policy document for formal action by council. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve this attached special events policy as recommended by staff and the Property Committee.
So moved.
Got a motion, Councilman Harwick. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, I would like to add a friendly amendment to the motion for a 5% royalty for when they charge for parking, tickets to events, anything like that. Because I already know that there's a sales tax that covers merchandise. There's a meals tax, which will cover if they're selling food or drinks. So why can't we have something for royalties, such as for like parking or tickets added to that?
I'll speak to that from the staff perspective. For one thing, it's not a bad idea, but there are a couple of points. One is that it would require an effort from town staff that frankly we don't know exactly how we'd go about it. The other thing I'll bring to your attention is one of the features of this policy as proposed is to recover some of our costs. So if we've got to dedicate town staff to basically audit receipts, and again, I don't even know if we have a great ability to do that, that's going to drive up the upfront cost that we'd be charging as part of the policy. So,
And you're only going to get 25% of that back, or 20% of that back.
Right. We're not opposed to it. I just wanted to note from a staff perspective, it's not something we are prepared to address from a practical standpoint. It would also impact other provisions of the policy.
All right, so basically that, by putting that, that would actually drive the cost up even more.
Yes, sir,
for
that's correct.
staff and the taxpayers, so just want to get down to record.
Yeah, and that, and like I said, I mean, how do you audit? I mean, it's a cash, I mean, these events are cash kind of deals. I mean, you know, it's like, yeah, I just don't know how we audit any. Yeah, I mean,
We know it's
it's hard enough to kind of
possible.
audit food. It's kind of hard enough to, you know, we're like on the food trucks. I mean, it's hard to audit them, you know, but we're hoping, you know, the ones that are here in town pretty regularly, they're going to pay. They know what the rules are, you know. But to go by event thing and try to, I just don't know how. Because I've thought about it too. You know, we talked, Bruce, you know, about the you know, making sure we get our meals tax, or make sure the county's getting sales tax from vendors. I mean, but it's just like, one, I mean, how much is it really you're gonna get versus the cost of trying to get it, you know? And I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I think this is a first good step.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, because, I mean, we talked about it in committee. I mean, we spent probably $20,000 roughly in overtime last year.
For all events, yes.
From our public works and police and, you know, for some, it's not an insubstantial amount, but we're not trying to get whole or make money off. I mean, because we want events to happen.
Definitely.
I mean, these events are important to our community and people enjoy them, and, you know, I think we're always gonna have to support that at some level. We're just trying to get a little bit of back. That is the way I understand what we were trying to do. If I'm wrong, tell me.
No, I'm all for it. We needed to do this.
Yep.
There's a couple things I would like to maybe talk about and propose, just some word change maybe, or some additions. If you look on page, let me get my glasses, I'm sorry. I think it was page 6. Up at the top, number F. So one of our requirements is that whoever's putting on the event, you know, we require them to provide proof of liability insurance. Sometimes that's problematic, it seems. So I wanted to add at the end of that line that they need to provide proof of liability insurance prior to the package coming to town council. So prior to approval by town council, we've got to have evidence they've got insurance for the event. And not take that chance between the time we approve the event and the event happens that we get proof of the insurance.
They don't get the insurance.
Does that make, and then it might not happen. Does anybody got any questions about what I was thinking there, or staff? Mike, is it?
Sounds good to me.
Good to me.
Is everybody good with that?
That clears up a lot of issues before it gets to us or whatever, so. they
Right,
already
I
have
mean,
the
you
insurance.
know, when we get our
Yep,
package,
we
we're gonna have a
Yep.
certificate of insurance in with the package, and we know that that's covered. And then the only other thing too is, on the next line, G, there's been some comments on some events, you know, where people have actually tried to go in and they couldn't get in, and, you know, these events are in our public parks or public facilities. So, and I don't know, Bart, we talked at lunch today, I don't know if you thought about some language there. I mean, these are public parks, so you're not really renting the whole public park.
Yeah, and I will say the language in G is attempted, I went back and read.
We've
That's
attempted to
basically what-
address that.
That's what we're trying to do. I'm not sure what the right,
Language.
what the precise language is. So if there's some wordsmithing that needs to be done, I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
don't know. I mean, yeah, what I'm basically saying is you
The
gotta
idea is if
leave
you're using
some
part of
area
the
of the
park, you
public
don't shut-
facility available for the public that's not going to your event, but wants to go to the parks. Like, I mean, it's basically the parks, you know, that we're talking about here. So, you know, how I don't know how. I mean, I'm not an English major. I was. Mike, can you get any thoughts? Is it clear enough? Is it clear enough, or is it not clear enough?
How would,
I understand what it means.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to have this discussion. You know, do you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's got to be people
In-
who got to
in
be able to have
practical
access to
terms,
the park.
If somebody were to have an event at Liberty Lake Park beyond the point in the road where the community building is, that will be fine, but the community building, of course, we're about to occupy that with the police department, the ball field, the tennis courts, shouldn't be impacted by the event.
Right.
How about something like public access, public access shall only be limited in areas specifically reserved? I mean, kind of turn it on its head in a way, but if there's, the limitation is only the area that the person has specifically reserved to be theirs, then everything else is
Right.
open.
But so yeah, exactly. So everything. So in part of that permitting process, they're going to say, I'm reserving this. The ball field is the gazebo and the parking around there.
Someone from the town's gonna have to approve it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's all
So
part
I
of
think
this
it'd be up to
process.
them. I think it's up,
But, you know,
I don't think we're gonna leave it to the person to interpret this. It's gonna be DW.
yeah, but there's gotta be something in there that says he can say you know, there's a piece of the park that you are not, I don't know.
I think he has that discretion myself.
Okay, you think that language is
Yeah.
good enough? I mean, if we got two lawyers that says it's good enough, it's probably good enough.
But if you have,
No objection, Your Honor.
if you're having an event and people don't wanna come to your event, but they wanna go to other places in the park,
Right.
okay, what kind of event are we talking about? A paying event?
Yeah,
People are paying.
people are paying.
Well, how would you, that's gonna be kinda tough, you know, because you got one interest in, okay? And then you got people that's coming and say they might not wanna pay to go to this event, but they wanna enjoy it. So I'm not going to this event, I'm going to the park.
Right, yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be kinda tough, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's where
But at
maybe
the
your
same
interest
time-
has to be at a certain level.
At the same time, they haven't rented the whole
Park.
park, so the public have a right to go to the park, but how you gonna do
Well,
that?
that may be the person that's renting the place is kinda, or I don't know. But
And also, DW can chime if he wants. I think we probably manage that by the point of entry.
port of entry. and
Because
then-
obviously, if you're gonna have a certain point of entry whereby beyond that you have to pay, people have to have the ability to turn around so they can avoid that.
Right,
And,
Right.
and we could manage that on an
Right.
event and locale basis.
okay. Yeah, but there needs to be, for these big events, you know.
Like I said,
we're talking
again, you could turn
July,
around the parking lot behind the community building if
Yeah.
beyond that you were renting the entire park.
Right.
And that's an extreme I don't know that we have any private events that rent the entire park at Liberty Lake anyway.
Yeah,
That'd be the most extreme example.
okay, so I just wanted to get that, I just wanted to.
But that's
that
what we're
point had
trying to
been brought
cover.
To me, and I kind of agreed that, they are public facilities, and you gotta have.
Right.
You can't restrict, and, restrict some access to a part of it, anyway. All right, that's all I had. Does anybody else got anything else?
Good with it. In the very end of it, it gives more discretion to the town as well to modify as necessary for the health, safety, and welfare. I mean, it's flexible enough to, we'll see how it goes. If it needs to be changed as we go, we'll change it.
Okay. I mean, this is a good, like I
That's a
said,
good
this
starting
is a
point.
big change from what we had.
And in the end, DW is gonna have that final say so anyway, pretty much, ain't it?
That's my understanding.
All right, so, we got a motion to approve. Do we need to,
I have a motion and a second
With the additional language.
we need to do an,
amendment.
Well, Mr. Hardwick could accept a friendly amendment, I guess.
And yes, I do accept that.
Okay. It's really just that one change is that we need to make the, insurance part of the package that.
Section 7
Sounds
F.
fair.
Approval. Yeah,
Yeah, you got it.
all right. So we're good? Anybody else got any questions, any more discussion, or? No? All right, roll call.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 ayes.
All right, next item, is, I guess, solid waste budget amendment?
At the council work session for solid waste on July 11th, 2023, the revised budget forecast and methodology for rebalancing the fiscal year 2024 budget was presented and accepted. Based on the opt-in and opt-out information, the anticipated revenue shortfall was $172,900. By allocating the 2 new refuse positions partially to streets, reducing the administration allocation, and closing the landfill operation on Saturdays, the town was able to reduce the solid waste expenditure budget by $164,009. The difference between the forecasted revenue shortfall and the budget reduction is within a 5 to 6% margin of difference. Staff is requesting for town council to formally amend the fiscal year 2024 budget for the items described above. And tonight, town council is requested to approve a budget amendment which will appropriate budget to general ledger accounts dealing with a decrease in revenue and a decrease in several expenditure accounts, which I am not going to list separately unless you make me.
So moved.
Second.
So, any questions?
I mean, we addressed this before. It sounds like
Yeah.
it was, the changes we made worked within 5%, right?
Correct. So my only question was, when we're taking this much out of the blacktop paving, is that right? Expenditure decrease on the,
Yes, and that is the town's local match. That is not the VDOT. But we also get money from VDOT for blacktop, so.
Right.
Typically, we get an allocation every year from VDOT, and we supplement that with town-generated funds. So we would be reducing the town-generated
town generated?
by that amount.
Blacktop, not the VDOT.
We're still going to do work on blacktop. We're just going to use VDOT's money instead of the
Right.
town's. Not as much as the town's.
Okay. Was there any thoughts of dividing that up amongst others? Well, I mean, of course, we've talked about sidewalks, how we want to try to get sidewalks done, so, I mean, so, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, if that's where everybody's okay with taking it from that.
So what are you saying? You want to,
Well, I didn't know if there was any other item you could still leave some, I mean, does that mean we're gonna not get a street paved for 100, I mean, that was potentially, I mean,
Yeah.
this year, okay. I mean,
I may add, if you don't mind, quickly, that we haven't allocated new VDOT revenue coming in.
right,
So
and that,
we may be able to add back to that when we find out what our new allocation is on the streets.
I was gonna ask that if you had gotten that, because I knew there was gonna be, because we took in some new street, obviously some new streets, that money was going up yet, so we haven't gotten that first quarter of what that, okay. Well, then, yeah, then if we could maybe try to get some of that back in towards that, when that, didn't that.
And we should be able to revisit that in October, I believe, with the Finance Committee. Okay, don't hold me to that. I'm getting mad.
All right. Then I would hope maybe if everybody else, I mean, that if we do, then we keep that in mind, that that's where we made this up. So if we get some extra revenues, I would recommend that we put that back in that line.
Right, it's based on the anticipated revenue shortfall.
Right.
Maybe we'll have some people up.
Yeah, I mean,
back
you
in,
know, maybe some come January, we'll get some new customers.
Right.
But anyway, all right. Any other questions? No? So we have a motion.
we had a motion.
All right, so roll call, I'm sorry.
Mr.
But
Johansson?
up since 3 o'clock.
Mr. Shelley?
Aye.
Mr. Carson? Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 ayes.
Is that everything? All right, we're adjourned.
That's all, folks.
Thank you.